أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافها يا عين صاد. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس 3 ليال سويا فخرج على قومه من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا وحنانا من لدنا وزكاة كان تقيا وبرا بوالديه ولم يكن جبارا عصيا وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, that was Sayyid Muhammad Jaffry reciting from Surah Maryam, one of the most beautiful surahs of the Quran. I will now be presenting before you a eulogy for Lady Fatimatu Zahra Salamullah alayha, a loud salawat for her. Please recite another salawat. Okay. If you can just sit there and make sure that okay. يا بنت رسول الله يا زوجة عين الله يا أم وجيه الله يا فاطمة الزهراء. You were merciful رحمة للعالمين, a shelter for Haydar, shelter for Allah's deen, a cradle for Hussain, Zainab Kulthum, a Jadda of Mahdi, the Jadda of Mahdi, Ma'asum ibn Ma'asum. You are the fountainhead of love and sacrifice. No wonder you were named Lady of Paradise. Ya Binta Rasulullah, Ya Zawjata Aynillah, Ya Umma Wajihillah, Ya Fatimata Zahra. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. O daughter of Ahmad, Zawja of Murtada, O mother of Hussain, Ya al-A'immah, the weight of every role you bore so perfectly that Allah spread Tathir from your identity. Unzurhum Fatima, Abuha Ba'aluha, Banuha Ahlul Bayt, Tahharahum Tathira. Look, this is Fatima, and this is her father, and this is her husband, and this her progeny. Ya binta Rasulillah, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatimata Zahra. In marriage loyalty, content in poverty, as parent keeping faith during adversity, when working with fidda, preaching equality, when feeding the needy, teaching humanity. Your virtues are unmatched, Ya Umme Abiha, your model worthy of Sayyidatun Nisa. Ya binta Rasulillah, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatimata Zahra. Sallu ala Muhammad. Tending your father's wounds, sustaining risalat, protesting Saqifa, protecting imamat. Your challenge did not die until the day you died. Your khutbah will survive every era and tide. We shall never concede that might is always right. Your protest shall endure, O Our Lady of Light. We shall never concede that might is always right. Your protest shall endure, O Our Lady of Light. Ya binta Rasulillah, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatimata Zahra. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, thank you very much again for assembling here for these majalis in English in Lahore, which are being telecast globally, because there is a penchant to benefit from the scholar that we have in our midst, Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry, Hujjatul Islam Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry. Maybe I can provide a background about the scholar. Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry completed his master's in electrical and computer engineering from the University of Washington in Seattle. After that, he proceeded to Qom in Iran, where he pursued religious studies for several years, and he's still based there. And he completed his master's in theology and is now attending Dars-e Kharij, which is the highest level of education and training that one can acquire in religious studies within the Shia Maslak. Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry has delivered lectures on various contemporary issues of fiqh, issues that arise in our day-to-day dealing. To give you an example, he has conducted workshops on how to write our wills, how to leave a will for our post-death distribution of assets. He has also conducted seminars on marriage and various other issues. And these seminars have been very well received around the world. In particular, I remember his seminars on Tawheed, on understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he started with the proof for Allah's existence. This is a question that may not be as relevant here, but certainly in the West. I'm based in the US. There are many questions that are being raised about the very existence of God. And Brother Aqib Jaffry definitively addressed those through his enlightening lectures. We are honored to have him among us. He has been talking about how to be a part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As Muharram arrives, our passions, our association, our love for Imam Hussain reaches a crescendo, and we are all eager to contribute to Imam Hussain and Karbala and commemorating the tragedy of Karbala in some way. But I think it is worth pondering what was the purpose and objectives of Imam Hussein's movement, what was his movement about, and how can we be a part of that movement. And Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry will enlighten us on this important topic. Today is his second speech in a 9 majlis series. So with a loud salawat, please welcome Hujjatul Islam Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Remembering your marhumin, the shuhada of Islam, and the ulama who have passed, let us recite a Suratul Fatiha for all of them. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين المعصومين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وخطابه المتين وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا ليتني كنت معهم فأفوز فوزا عظيما صلوات صل على محمد وآل محمد. A wise creator would never create anything without a purpose. So there is purpose behind the creation of everything, including jinns and humans. And because it was important that this purpose be communicated, and the attributes of perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demanded that He could not manifest Himself in human form, it demanded that He establish an institution of prophethood to communicate this purpose of creation to humanity. That purpose was communicated, but it was also important that that purpose be protected, and the path that we all needed to follow to fulfill the purpose of our creation stay intact till the day of judgment. And in order to ensure that that path stayed intact, the institution of Imamat was set up. This is the summary of what we discussed yesterday. And the purpose of creation as described in the Holy Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the humans and the jinns, but for the very reason that they should worship me. A more precise translation would be, the only reason I created men and jinn is that they should worship me. There is no other purpose of creation. There is no other reason. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The only reason is worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the tradition which Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, salawat Muhammad wa awli Muhammad. In the tradition, the Imam says that in Allah Azza wa Jal ma khalaqa al-ibad illa liya'rifu. Allah did not create His servants except that they should have ma'rifah of Him. He's mentioning ma'rifah as the purpose of creation, and we understood the relationship between ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the very next line of the tradition, which says, فَإِذَا عَرَفُوهُ عَبَدُوهُ. When they will know Him, they will worship Him. So every journey starts from ma'rifah. When we are brought into this world, Wallahu akhrajakum min butune ummahatikum la ta'lamuna shay'a. He brought you out of the wombs of your mother in a state that you knew nothing. We start our journey from jahalat. We know nothing, and then we gradually begin to learn and increase our ma'rifah and begin our journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all have to go through this journey. In fact, this is the journey for which we are all created. To reiterate the same idea in philosophical terms, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all perfection. He is absolute perfection, and He created us so that we could accomplish perfection. He created us so that we could be driven towards perfection. And in order to motivate us towards the journey of perfection, He instilled in us the love for perfection. We all want to be perfect. I can guarantee you there would not be a single person in this room who does not want to become perfect. When your clothes get dirty, why do you wash it? Because you consider it a sign of perfection. If someone is handicapped, God forbid, he would want to get rid of that handicap because he considers it an imperfection, and if he cannot, he will hide it. Same goes with spiritual defects. If a person is suffering from a spiritual defect like being a bakhil person, being a miser, he would not want to be called a miser. He would not want to be called a bakhil person. So if he can hide his bukhl, or first of all, if he can get rid of his bukhl, he would do that. But if he cannot, he would hide his bukhl by public display of charity. So it is not called a miser. So this shows that we are all blessed with the love of perfection. This love of perfection is nothing but the love of the absolute perfect being that exists. And it is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself that He has instilled in our hearts that is pushing and attracting us towards Himself and enabling us to start that journey for which we were all created. And in order to help us take appropriate steps in that journey, He communicated to us the methods, His likes and dislikes, so that by acting on His likes and staying away from His dislikes, we get closer to perfection. We get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is here where, out of our limited existence and our material attachments, we sometimes consider wealth to be perfection. We sometimes consider fame to be perfection. We sometimes consider power, worldly power, to be a manifestation of perfection, and we start running after these things. If they were truly signs of perfection, the more wealth you acquire, the more satisfied you should be. Because now you're getting closer to your perfection. If power was true perfection, the more power you acquire, the more satisfied you should be. But we find it otherwise. The more wealth you have, the more greedy you become. The more control you have over a country, you would want to have control over another country. The more fame you get, the more empty you feel. This shows that these are not true signs of perfection. They are not true manifestations of perfection. True manifestation of perfection is the absolute being out there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is only by getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the hearts will gain tranquility. And that is what this verse of the Holy Quran, Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, is saying. Beware, in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the qulub, the hearts are going to find tranquility. Wa alaikum assalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa awli man. We were created for this journey, a journey towards perfection, which in religious terms is a journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the way that is going to happen is what the verse tells us, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, through worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is through the worship of Allah that this journey will be completed. And worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will begin from ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there is no ma'rifat, there will be no worship. If there is no ma'rifat, there will be no love. Ma'rifat means awareness, knowledge, understanding. In Nahjul Balagha, Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu was salam, please recite the salawat, says, Awwaluddin ma'rifatuh. The first step and foremost in religion is the ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once there is ma'rifat, there will be movement. And the same goes with the question that we are trying to answer in the coming days, today, a part of it today, and in the coming days, if we want to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it has to begin with ma'rifat. Ma'rifat of who Imam Hussain alayhi salam was, ma'rifat of his movement, ma'rifat of the goals and objectives of his movement. Without this ma'rifat, that movement cannot take place. And even when we are commanded to love the Ahlul Bayt, وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. We have been commanded to love the Ahlul Bayt. Not only commanded, this is the ajr of risalat. Let me ask you this question. Is loving a person by choice? Can you choose to love someone and hate someone? Is it in your control to love or hate someone? Yes or no? No. It is not in your control. Just like sleeping is not in your control. You can lay on the bed, but going to sleep is not in your control. Rising from the bed is also not in your control. Awakening is not, waking up is not in your control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can a wise creator command us to do something that is not in our control? Would it be wise for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to command us to jump and fly in the sky? We can't do that. That would be inappropriate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to command us to do something that is beyond our control. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the ajr of the risalat, or the Holy Prophet is asking for the ajr of the risalat, and the ajr is that you love my family. So isn't Allah here commanding us to do something beyond our control? So what is the secret here? How do you solve this problem? How do you answer this question? Here again, Allah through this command is actually asking us to have the ma'rifat of the Ahlul Bayt. For once we begin to have the ma'rifat of the Ahlul Bayt, we will realize that there is nothing but perfection in these personalities. And the moment we find perfection in these personalities, our hearts will automatically be turned towards them, and we will begin to love them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So loving if we want to love the Ahlul Bayt, we need to know the Ahlul Bayt. This incident, this story, you must have heard it before many times as well, and this story has been narrated for Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam as well as for Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, that a person, salawat on both of them inshallah, salli ala Muhammad. A person comes from Sham during a Hajj journey or for an Umrah journey, and while he was leaving, he happened to pass through Medina. And when he saw Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and in some of the riwayat, Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam, he asked, who is this person? And when he was told that he is the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he became upset. And he began to abuse the Imam and use inappropriate language for the Imam. The Imam calmly listened to him. And when he was done, the Imam recited certain verses of the Holy Quran that talked about forgiveness and hilm and af. And then asked him, it seems that you are a stranger in this city. He said, yes. The Imam asked him, where are you from? He said, I'm from Sham. Imam said, such behavior is not unexpected from you. I know the reason why you are behaving in this manner. You are a stranger in this city. If there is anything I can do for you, I'm at your service. If you need food, my house is ready for you. If you need shelter, you're welcome to stay at my home. If you need a ride, my horse is available. He says, I was so ashamed of myself that I wanted the earth to open and swallow myself. And he stayed with the Imam for a few days. And when he was leaving Medina, he left Medina saying these words. He said, when I entered Medina, I hated Ali and his progeny the most. But now that I am leaving Medina, I love them the most. How did this transition take place? What was the reason for this transition? He did not have the marifat of the Ahlul Bayt. And now, he had the marifat of Ahlul Bayt. So the marifat, so even if we want to, if you want to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam, there will be a couple of steps before you can become part of the movement of Imam Hussain. You need to have the desire to become a part of the movement of Imam Hussain. Where will this desire come from? Through marifat. Understanding the goals and objectives, understanding the lofty goals that Imam Hussain had set to accomplish, that will create the desire to actually be part of this movement. And then that desire needs to grow so strong that it converts itself into a decision to become part of the movement. And that not only decision, that this decision is actually possible for me. Sometimes there is water, you are thirsty, and there is water on the other side of the cliff. But if you think that there is no way to reach the other side, then you won't make any effort. Knowing that this is in reach and it is achievable, it is possible for me to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain. So it all starts from marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It starts from the marifat of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And let me add here, and these are not my words, that marifat of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam cannot take place unless you have the marifat of the Holy Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa awli Muhammad. And we cannot have the marifat of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless you have the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isn't it surprising? We thought that we came to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Holy Prophet. But I'm saying that no, you cannot know the Holy Prophet unless you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you cannot know the Imam unless you know the Holy Prophet. There's a tradition that talks about this. Zurara, one of the companions of the 6th Imam, came to the Imam and talked about the time of ghaibat, the time we are living in. And he asked, and the Imam tells him about the extended ghaibat that people will have to go through. And then he asks Imam this question. He says, in adrakto dhalika zaman, if I happen to be in that time, what should I do? Again, remember, the right questions We are thankful to these companions for having asked these questions so that we can follow. The answer that the Imam is going to give applies to us in this time and age. The age of the ghaibat of the Imam, where we are wandering, trying to get connected to the Imam of our time. The Imam, he says, Ayyul amal, which action should I perform? The Imam says that if you get to that time, अगर उस वक्त को दर्क कर लो, ग़ैबत के टाइम को, फदउ बिहाज़त दुआ, then offer this prayers. इस दुआ को पढ़ना. And what is that dua? Allahumma arifni nafsak. Oh Allah, give me your ma'rifah. अपनी मारिफत मुझे अता कर. فإنك إن لم تعرفني نفسك لم أعرف نبيك. For if you do not provide me, give me your ma'rifah, I would not know your messenger. In the second phrase, Allahumma arifni rasulak. Oh Allah, give me ma'rifat of your messenger. فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تُعَرِّفْنِي رَسُولَكَ لَمْ أَعْرِفْ حُجَّتَكَ. मुझे अपने नबी की मारिफत अता कर, क्योंकि अगर मुझे तेरे नबी की मारिफत न हुई, तेरी हुज्जत की मारिफत नहीं होगी. If I fail to recognize your messenger, your prophet, I would not know your hujjah. Allahumma arifni hujjatak. Oh Allah, provide me the marifah, bless me with the marifah of your hujjah. فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تُعَرِّفْنِي حُجَّتَكَ زَلَلْتُ عَنْ دِينِي. I will become astray from my religion. After recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and after recognizing the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I do not know, if I do not get the marifah of the Imam, زَلَلْتُ عَنْ دِينِي, I would become astray, I would go astray from my religion. So the marifat of the Imam starts from the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you want to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain, we have to start from the marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why I will take 1 or 2 days to build up the framework, inshallah, the prerequisites for actually getting deeper into this topic of how to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Our purpose of creation is ibadat, is worship. Worship has a prerequisite. The prerequisite is marifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is worship? That is the purpose of our creation. Is worship the act of sujood, the act of ruku, the act of praying, the act of hajj, saum, salat? What is ibadat? For the verse says, you have been created only and only for worship. There is nothing else you have been created for, only worship. If ibadat means only and only the rituals that we perform, then are we fulfilling the verse, our purpose of creation? Did the Imams limit themselves to worship alone in that sense of meaning of the word rituals? We see the Imams were busy in economic affairs, in managing the affairs of the society, in meeting the relatives. They had a social life, they had a personal, private life. They spent time in the rituals. They are the best manifestations of following this verse, worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So worship, ibadat, is not limited to saum and salat and hajj and zakat. What is ibadat then? Which is the purpose of our creation. We should be very clear about the purpose of our creation. What is ibadat then, for which we all have been created for? Ibadat, if ibadat was prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then even shaitan did not deny that. Even shaitan did not deny that. The essence of ibadat is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the essence and the ruh of ibadat. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the angels to prostrate before Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, and everybody did except Iblis. And Allah asked him, why did you not prostrate to Adam? What did he... There's a dialogue that happened and the Quran has narrated that, but in traditions, at that point we find this statement of shaitan. At that point, shaitan proposed to Allah. He said, forgive me this prostration to Adam alayhi salam, and in return, inni a'buduka ibadatan lam ya'budkaha nabiyyun mursal wala malakun muqarrab. Forgive me this prostration, and instead I will worship you in a manner that no Nabi has ever done before or no angel has ever done before. ऐसी इबादत करूंगा जो ना किसी नबी मुकर्रब ने की हो, नबी मुरसल ने की हो, ना मलक मुकर्रब ने की हो. And what was the reply? So he did not deny prostration to Allah. He said, I don't want to follow this command of yours. What did the reply come? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ka jawab hai, inni la hajata li ila ibadatik. I don't need your worship. Inni uridu an ubad min haysu urid, la min haysu turid. I want to be worshipped the way I want, not the way you want. Ibadat wo jo main chahun, na wo jo tum chaho. That is the essence of worship. Obedience to Allah. If Allah had accepted his proposal, kiski baat mani ja rahi hai? Whose word? Who listened to who? You are worshipping the one whom you submit to. That is the essence of ibadat. That is the essence of worship. Obedience. Obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we live a lifestyle where our sitting, our standing, our sleeping, our eating, our walking becomes in line with the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then our entire life will become a misdaq of obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not only that, will become a misdaq of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we can fully act on this verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Then every act of yours will become an act of worship. That is why we see in the traditions this riwayat, man ata'a rajulan fi ma'asiyatin, whoever follows a person in an act of sin, faqad abada, has actually worshipped him. जिसकी आप बात मान रहे हैं उसी की इबादत कर रहे हैं. And if you look at the verses of the Holy Quran that talk about the major objective, the main objectives of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, laqad ba'asna fi kulli ummatin rasula, we sent a prophet in every nation. Why? An abudullah wajtanibut taghut, that you should worship me and stay away from the taghut. मेरी इबादत करो और तागूत से दूर रहो. What is the relationship between worshipping Allah and staying away from the taghut of Allah, of taghut? दोनों साथ साथ क्यों नहीं चल सकते? Why do we have to stay away from taghut? Taghut is anyone who has crossed his boundaries. That is a taghi person who crosses his boundaries, and a person who exaggerates in that crossing, who has gone astray himself and is deceiving others as well. All the corrupt rulers, all the tyrannical rulers who usurp the divine right of leading communities towards perfection from the divinely appointed, they are all manifestations of taghut. Why do we have to stay away from them? For the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to actually take place. You will realize this when you understand that the essence of ibadat is ata'at, is obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you enter the vilayat, when you enter the guardianship of a taghut, then it becomes impossible to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you see that in Western countries, in all countries where they have their own state laws that are different than the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It becomes very difficult to live in that society and fully comply with the laws of Islam. It becomes difficult. It's not possible. In order to live a life in compliance with the laws of Islam, you will have to stay away from the oppressive rulers. And that is one of the major objectives and purposes of all prophets. And that is why you find all the rulers of their times were against them. Because the mission of the prophet is to establish the divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the community. And those rulers wanted their own laws, their own man-made laws, and their own desires to be implemented in the society. And there is a conflict. You cannot have both. You either live by the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you cannot. And if you look in the same light, that if Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his movement, Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam is not only the grandson of the Holy Prophet, वो नवासा रसूल ही नहीं, नुमाइंदा रसूल भी हैं. He is also the Numainda and the vicegerent of the Prophet of Allah on the face of the earth. And he is fulfilling the same mission as that of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah, Muhammad, only Muhammad. You can connect with the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salam at several levels. The movement of Imam Hussain was a movement of justice, yes. But it was not limited to justice only. It was a movement of freeing people from the shackles of tyranny. But it was not limited to that. It was a movement, if a person wants to connect at that level, you can connect at that level. But there are higher levels of the movement of Imam Hussain, and you can become part of the higher levels as well. In fact, if you get connected at whatever level, eventually you will be pulled up into the higher levels when you will see nothing but beauty in the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. And the highest level for which we should all strive for is that movement of Imam Hussain was there for the reform of the ummah of the Holy Prophet, so that through this reform, the divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be established over the face of earth. And it is through the establishment of divine law that justice would be served. It is through the establishment of this divine law that humanity will be free from the shackles of tyranny and oppression and jahalat and zalalat. This is what the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salam entails. This is what he set out to establish. Because when you accept the vilayat, the guardianship of an oppressive ruler, the tradition is very strong. Let me read parts of it for you. It says, Anna fi valayatil waliyil jair, in the guardianship of an oppressive ruler, what does it entail? It entails darus al-haq kullahu. It entails the destruction of all of haq. Accepting and getting under the vilayat of a tyrannical ruler, of a waliyil jair, it entails the destruction of haq, all of it. Wa ahya al-batil kullahu, and the revival of batil, all of it. All of batil. Wa izhar az-zulm wal-jawr wal-fasad, and the support of zulm and jawr and fasad. Wa ibtalul kutub and the nullification of the divine books, وَقَتْلَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ, and the qatl of all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and those of mu'mineen, وَهَدْمُ الْمَسَاجِدِ, and the destruction of the masajid, وَتَبْدِيلَ سُنَّةِ اللَّهِ, and the changing of the sunnat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, replacement of the sunnat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَشَرَائِهِ, and his religion. And then the hadith continues. This is what accepting the vilayat of a tyrannical ruler entails. That is why Imam Hussain alayhi salam refused to pay allegiance to anyone like Yazid. Because this is what it would have entailed, the destruction of all of Haqq, the nullification of the efforts of all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we talk about the event of Karbala, we start from 60th Hijri, when the ruler of Sham dies and Yazid takes over. But I would like to encourage all of you to go and read some of the sermons Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam gave years before the ruler of Sham dies. It will give you a picture, a true picture of the state of the affairs of the Ummah at that time. Once Yazid took over, he had not given any commands. He had not really taken control of the affairs. Why did Imam Hussain immediately stood up against him? Why doesn't he give him a chance to see what he does? In order to understand that Imam Hussain alayhi salam was not unka mizaj jangju or Imam Hassan ka mizaj sulahju, aisi baat nahi, it's not like that. 10 years of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, after Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Imam Hussain lives for 10 years. But he does not resort to armed struggle over those 10 years. It is when Yazid takes over in 60th Hijri, and he sends a letter to Walid, the governor of Medina, stating that Muawiyah has died and I've taken over. I want you to take bay'ah from a list of people, and include, and one of the names was Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and in case he refuses, behead him. When Walid ibn Utbah looks at this letter, he becomes terrified. He does not want the blood of Imam Hussain on his hands. Not knowing what to do, he calls for Marwan ibn al-Hakam for advice. Marwan comes, he becomes aware of the situation. He says, if you give Imam Hussain more time, he will never do allegiance. He will never pay allegiance to Yazid. You have to call Imam right now and take a bay'ah from him. Otherwise, it will not be possible. So he sends a messenger to Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. Abdullah ibn Zubair was there, Imam Hussain was there. The messenger tells him that the Wali of Medina wants to see you. So the Imam tells him to leave and Imam will follow. Abdullah ibn Zubair asked him, what do you think? Why has Walid called you? The Imam responds saying, I think Muawiyah has passed away. Yazid has taken over. And he wants bay'ah from me in the middle of the night. Abdullah ibn Zubair asks him, so what are you going to do? Are you going to go? Imam says, yes, I will go. But I won't go alone. I will go with my tribe. So the Imam takes his men with him and asks them to wait outside the palace of, or Darul Amara, or whatever building that was where he used to live, and warn them, do not leave this place without me. Do not leave this place until I come out myself or I raise my voice. And the Imam enters and meets Walid bin Utbah. There Walid presents the letter to the Imam, and the Imam looks at this letter, and the Imam says, allegiance in the middle of night, would you not rather we discuss this in broad daylight? And Walid agreed. But Marwan turned to Walid and said, if you let Imam go at this point, you will never get hold of him again. And when Marwan says this to Walid, Imam Hussain comes in rage and he says, you are going to kill me? You or this person? And then he introduced himself and he introduced Yazid to Walid. He said, Inna ahlu bayt al-nabuwa wa ma'adin al-risala wa mukhtalaf al-malaika wa bina fatah Allahu wa bina khatam Allah. We are the Inna ahlu bayt al-nabuwa, we are the household of the prophetic mission. Wa ma'adin al-risala, and we are the sources of prophethood. Wa mukhtalaf al-malaika, and we are the place where the angels descend and take off from. وَبِنَا خَفَتَهَ اللَّهُ, and through us God initiated everything, and through us God is going to conclude everything. بِنَا فَتَهَ اللَّهُ وَبِنَا خَتَمَ اللَّهُ. And then he turned and introduced Yazid. وَيَزِيد رَجُلٌ فَاسِقٌ شَارِبُ الْخَمْرِ. And Yazid is a fasiq person. He is a drunkard, he drinks. وَقَاتِلُ النَّفْسِ الْمُحَرَّمَ, and he has sacred blood on his hands. مُعْلِنٌ بِالْفِسْقِ, and he commits fisq openly. لَيْسَ لَهُ هَذِهِ الْمَنْزِلَةِ, this station of wilayat does not belong to him. وَمِثْلِي لَا يُبَاعُ مِثْلَهُ, and the likes of me are never going to pay allegiance to the likes of him. This was the statement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. He's introducing his mission statement. The likes of me are not going to submit to the likes of him. And if you want to measure the success of any movement, you have to measure it against the goals and objectives set by the movement. Imam is saying, I am not going to submit to him, ever. And he succeeded in his mission. Why did he say he is sharibul khamr? Why does drinking become an obstacle in becoming the wali of the ummah? The institution of Karbala is an institution for us to learn everything. I mentioned a part of it yesterday, one example from yesterday, another example from today. In one of the letters that Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam wrote to Muawiyah during his lifetime, when he was making arrangements to install Yazid as the ruler after him, the Imam says to him, Sharibul khamr laysa bi'aminin ala dirhamin fakayfa ala al-ummah. A person who drinks cannot be trusted with one dirham. How can he be trusted with the entire ummah? How can he be trusted with the entire ummah? This is a message for all of us. When you appoint your leaders in your communities, if a person who is sharibul khamr, he cannot be trusted with even a dirham. How can we entrust them with the affairs of the entire ummah? And the Imam leaves that gathering with these statements. Did Imam want governance? Did Imam want to become the wali of the ummah? What does these statements tell us? The Imam is saying, Laysa lahu hazihil manzila, this station does not belong to him. What is the Imam saying? To whom does it belong? The Imam is saying it belongs to me. Because this is my status. Inna ahla baytun nabuwa wa ma'adin al-risala wa mukhtalaf al-malaika. This is our status. This is who we are. Wa yazid rajulun fasiqun sharibul khamr qatilun nafs al-muharrama laysa lahu hazihi al-manzila. This station does not belong to such a person. And this is who we are. It belongs to us. That was a claim. The statement is a claim to entitlement to the wilayat over the Muslim ummah. The Imam comes back to his community, to his family, and asks them to prepare for a long journey. He now realizes that Medina is no longer safe for them. In the middle of the night, as the family was preparing, he goes and visits the grave of the Holy Prophet. He goes to the grave of the Holy Prophet and greet his grandfather. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Ya Allah ke Rasul, aap par mera salam ho. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Anal Hussain ibn Fatimah. I am Hussain, the son of Fatimah. I am your son and I am the son of your daughter. I am your grandson whom you had entrusted your ummah to look after them. But I have come here to complain to you that your ummah has let me down. They did not protect me. They have abandoned me, and this is my complaint to you today. He leaves the grave of his grandfather only to return a few hours later again. But this time he turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, "Oh Allah, this is the grave of your Nabi. Haza qabru nabiyyik. And I am the son of the daughter of your Nabi. And you know that I have been challenged with an affair with the matter that you are well aware of. And you know that I like and I love ma'roof and I hate munkar." And he gains strength from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the grave of his grandfather. And in the middle of the night, he leaves Medina with his family. But he did not leave secretly like a runaway slave. No. बहुत शान और शौकत से ये कारवान निकला होगा. अकेले नहीं गए, पूरा खानदान साथ है, भाई साथ हैं, बहनें साथ हैं, असहाब साथ हैं, घोड़े हैं, ऊंट हैं, कजावे हैं, कजावा ऊंटों के ऊपर कजावा पड़ा हुआ है, बीबियों को सवार करने वाले नौजवान मौजूद हैं. जब मदीना से निकल रहे थे तो इस हालत में निकल रहे हैं. अभी कुछ अरसे बाद यही कारवान दोबारा मदीना में दाखिल हो रहा होगा. और जब दाखिल हो रहा था उस वक्त जनाब उम्मे कुलसूम ने कुछ अशआर पढ़े हैं अपने बारे में और अपने कारवान के बारे में. वो अशआर आपकी खिदमत में पेश करना चाहता हूँ. फरमाती हैं, मदीनत जद्दिना ला तक़बलीना. ए मेरे नाना के शहर, हमें कबूल न करना. फबिल हसरात वल अहजान जेना. हम हसरतों के साथ और गमों के साथ पलट रहे हैं. खरज न मिन के बेअहली न जमअन. जब हम इस शहर से निकल रहे थे तो अपने पूरे खानदान के साथ निकल रहे थे. वजेना ला रिजाला वला बनीना. अब जब पलट रहे हैं तो ना मर्द हमारे साथ हैं, ना हमारी औलादें हमारे साथ हैं. फिर फरमाया, व रहतुका या रसूल अल्लाह उज़हू. या रसूल अल्लाह, आपके खानदान को ज़िबा कर डाला. अराया बित्तुफूफ मुसल्लबीना. और आपके खानदान वालों के जनाजे बेसरो सामान सहरा में पड़े हैं. फातिमा लौ नजरती लस्सबाया. ए फातिमा ज़हरा या सय्यदतुन निसाइल आलमीन. अगर आप अपनी बेटियों को देख लेती, बनातिका फिल बलादे मुशत्ततीना. किस तरह से उनको दर बदर भराया जा रहा था. लो अबसरती ज़ैनुल आबिदीना. अगर आप ज़ैनुल आबिदीन को देख लेती. फलो दामत हयातुक लम तजाली. जब तक आप जिंदा रहती, इला यौमिल क़ियामा तंबीना. आप क़यामत तक गिरियोजारी में मशगूल रहती. अला या जद्दन क़त्लु हुसैना या रसूल अल्लाह. ए हमारे जद हुसैन को कत्ल कर दिया. वलम यरऔ जनाब अल्लाह फीना. और जो हमारी हुर्मत थी उसका कोई पास नहीं रखा. अला लानतुल्लाहि अलल क़ौमिज़ ज़ालिमीन. Parwardigar, please, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please accept what was being read and what was being heard in your cause, inshallah, and hasten the reappearance of our 12th Imam. Bless all the mu'mineen and mu'minat who have come here and help us to educate ourselves with your ma'rifah, to provide us your ma'rifah, the ma'rifat of your Holy Prophet and the ma'rifah of your Imam and his mission. and help us to do tarbiyah of our children in such a way that they end up in the camps, in the camp of the 12th Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We'll have Matam inshallah.
Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliyullah, Wasiyyu Rasulillah. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliyullah, Wasiyyu Rasulillah, Wasiyyu Rasulillah. Said our Mawla unto Walid, cannot give bay'ah to Yazid. Said our Mawla unto Walid, cannot give bay'ah to Yazid. He is the lowest of the low, we where the angels come and go. He is the lowest of the low, we where the angels come and go. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliyullah, Wasiyyu Rasulillah,
Wasiyyu Rasulillah.
O my helpers, O my kin, leaving me will bring no sin. O my helpers, O my kin, leaving me will bring no sin. They said, Mawla, we are few, but we live and die for you. They said, Mawla, we are few, but we live and die for you. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliyullah, Wasiyyu Rasulullah,
Wasiyyu Rasulillah.
When Mawla said, O my son, Akbar, your moment has come. When Mawla said, O my son, Akbar, your moment has come. Let your faith and courage show, let these coward heathens know. Let your faith and courage show, let these coward heathens know. La ilaha illallah. Everyone, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliyullah, Wasiyyu Rasulillah,
Wasiyyu Rasulillah.
O my lions of Ja'far, O my Qasim and Asghar, O my lions of Ja'far, O my Qasim and Asghar. If not for your martyrdom, this battle would not be won. If not for your martyrdom, this battle would not be won. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, علي ولي الله
وصي رسول الله
وصي رسول الله. Oh, will you come back, Abbas? There is no one crying Pyas. Oh, will you come back, Abbas? There is no one crying Pyas. In this eerie land unknown, are you leaving us alone? In this eerie land unknown, are you leaving us alone? La ilaha illallah. Everyone, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliullah, Wasi Rasulullah,
Wasi Rasulullah.
See this dagger on my neck, this is my moment of death. See this dagger on my neck, this is my moment of death. Hear my Shia far away, hear it, hear your Mawla say. Hear my Shia far away, hear it, hear your Mawla say. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliullah, Wasi Rasulullah,
Wasi Rasulullah.
With every beat, every breath, O Allah, until my death. With every beat, every breath, O Allah, until my death. If I die olden or young, keep this kalima on my tongue. If I die olden or young, keep this kalima on my tongue. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliullah, Wasi Rasulullah, Wasi Rasulullah. Everyone, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, Ali Waliullah, Wasi Rasulullah, Wasi Rasulullah. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد
وآل محمد.
متوجه زيارة السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك، السلام عليك وعلى أمك وأخيك، السلام عليك وعلى التسة المعصومين من ذريتك، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Everyone, السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس يا أنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض طوس يا سلطان العرب والعجم يا علي بن موسى الرضا الراضي بالقدر والقضاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والأمر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Brothers and sisters, just one announcement before you leave. There is tabarak here, so please everyone should pass down here and please take your tabarak for this majlis. Also, if anybody wants to recite, read a speech among the male reciters, please do contact me on 0309 593 4860 or just contact me afterwards. And then please do spread word of these majalis, because these were set up on very short notice. We would be grateful if you could spread word of these majalis within your circles. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.